So, good days and good time zones, fellow listeners and amazing individuals. I am your host, Nicco Silverado, navigator of the digital grid and guardian of the internet. And welcome to yet another episode of The Silver Lining, the show where we spotlight creators, give them the voice that they so desperately deserve, while also searching for the silver lining for the things that plague content creators every day. Today, I am joined with my good man, my good bro here, DJ Kiske, and welcome to today's episode of Silver Lining, where we talk about life beyond the algorithm and the importance of people and why they are the best tool to grow. Kiske, welcome in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. For those who don't know, Nicco and I have been good friends for a few years now. I want to say 3-4 years?
Yes, a lot of years.
Yeah.
It's been very nice.
Yeah, and so, I mean, when I heard he was doing a podcast and my partner Brandon got on here first, I was like, excuse you? You're not going to do this without me. No. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, my guy.
It was a Brandon exclusive, don't you know?
Something like that.
Brandon was just faster. Faster than that. Hell yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, those who've never been here, a part of the show, the Silver Lining Podcast is a show where we do everything we can to find various creators of all shapes and sizes in order to give you guys an opportunity to learn more about creators and fellow VTubers, for example, in a more legitimate way, a real way, a way that kind of takes them away from the pressures of content creation, and a way that allows you to learn more about their lore, their personality, and even in more cases, their opinions about some of the various topics that we have planned here today. And we have our lovely Discord where you guys are able to post your questions about our various guests and even include various topics that you think we should discuss during the show. So if you guys ever want to come join us and learn more about the show, we have a link in the description of the video, as well as a link to my Twitch, which will lead you to the Discord, should you be interested. And as always though, nevertheless so, hell yeah. So Kiske, let's take a moment here and just appreciate the fact that you are an amazingly talented individual. I'm very thankful to have you here in the stream, and not only just the fact that you're a guest here, but for those who are hearing in the background, we have a brand new theme song made by Kiske. And Kiske, why don't you tell people about your background as a person?
So I'm a musician. I make different kinds of music. I've made some background music for other people as well, so people like Yuko, our man Nicco here, Brandon, just a bunch of people. I've made little, songs and things in the background, and so it's something that I've kind of been doing since I think about 2012. So I'm on about 13 years I've been doing this, and so I basically just put things together and make my I try to make a sort of sonic soundscape that people can work on over it or have things in the background. And in some cases, for certain projects, and not to toot my own horn here, but I actually have a few songs in a video game, which is Boombox by Cybersblind Games. I have 6 or 7 of my tracks in the game, so if you guys are interested in a VR game, go check that one out.
I love that.
And then I started streaming in 2019, but I became a VTuber in 2020. And I feel like it was it kind of helped in that sense that I just basically helped me come out of my shell, if you will.
Yeah. Honestly, that's really cool. So for those who don't understand, so for me personally, as a graphic designer, I have knowledge about how to make logos, how to make graphics and all that, but for me, I don't understand how music works much at all. And Kiske is very fast, and he has made multiple items here for our podcast, for our channel. He's made what I use now at the end of all of my YouTube videos. He's made a theme song that I've used for the channel, and he's even made now a theme song for the podcast. And Kiske, you cranked this thing out pretty damn fast. To me, if I was in charge of magically making sound into a reasonable music track, it would take me a month to make what you made me in less than a day.
it was I'm gonna be honest, I did cheat just a little bit. By that, what I mean is that I had a pack that I bought probably about a year or two ago that was specifically synthwave stuff.
Yeah.
And so basically I just used it like a construction set and just kind of put a bunch of things together and then added all my effects and stuff on top to make the background music. So it's a little bit of like, it's a little bit of piecing things together so that things sound good, but also having some knowledge of like, okay, I can't do this. I have to be careful here. I have to make this sound a certain way. Otherwise, it'll just sound like Sonic Soup, and you end up with drift funk music.
Ain't nothing wrong with Sonic Soup.
No, Sonic Soup. If you get the gold rings, it's even better.
Here's a question though: is the ocean a soup?
Yes, but it's full of microplastics.
Yeah, plastics. I'm playing another crab's what's it called? Another crab's tail, another crab's treasure. Yeah. And that one's all about microplastics. So we all know about the traffics. He's gonna make a track with a fart pack and it would be fire. God.
I mean, I could try.
There's your next YouTube video.
Oh, bet. I was thinking like a challenge stream, where I give myself like 2 hours to make a song using just fart noises. Oh my God.
Running in the 90s, but all farts. God, I'll tell you what, like, I think like what's really cool is like, one fun thing that I love about this space and in general, like just streaming in overall, is that we are surrounded by talented individuals with all sorts of skills, assets, and ability to like incorporate so many different things with one another. And like what's really fun is, in my time like working with other people, I've had the opportunity to make logos for people, make various things like graphic wise, and it's really fun to like make those connections. And what's really fun is, for a little bit of like lore history for us, for those who are watching and or listening, we were a part of a website that, for the sake of disrespect to them but also respect for us, is known as simply the Site That Shall Not Be Named. We were able to meet via a very interesting and very weird opportunity that ended up crashing and burning, but we ended up making a friendship out of it that has lasted a very long time. And I think that's like one of the things that I love about this like this ability in this space, is that online friends are made easier and more than ever. And one of the things I wanted to talk about later on in the show is the importance of people in the world of content creation. So Kiske, my first question to you is that one thing I like to ask all of my guests is, do you consider yourself a hobbyist streamer or a full-time streamer who wants to eventually go and make money doing this?
So that's the thing. I feel like I'm kind of in between both of them, because naturally, I love streaming. I do it every weekend. It's kind of therapeutic to me. I feel like I like it. Would I love to get paid to do this? Absolutely. Like, I feel like that's a lot of people's sentiment, but at the moment I'm kind of in that weird in between space of like, I do this as a hobby, but I would like to be paid for it.
Sure.
It's not my main goal, but it is. But who doesn't want to get paid for doing what they love?
Exactly. So I guess like we'll do before we get into like more of the lore parts for you. So like, in your eyes, if you could, like, what kind of content do you think you would want to ever like focus on as a creator? Like, would you want to be like a variety gaming creator, or would you want to hopefully be a creator that's more centered around music?
Kind of a mix of both. That's kind of why music man. It's kind of a mix of both, and that's kind of what I've been doing as of late. Is I kind of want to do both. I want to be able to do my silly game streams where I'm messing around with with the crew, with Pika, with you, and then with other people, and then at the same time also be able to take a day to make music, or like take a stream where I could just sit there, be making music. So it's a little bit of both. And I was gonna say, I do also want to eventually get into doing things like VR and like DJ sets and things like that. You know, something that actually makes sense for my name.
Oh yeah.
Because, oh man, I love that. Like, I love that I'll play music or I'll make music and stuff. That, like, people will be like, "Wow, you're so good at music and stuff like that." It's like, yeah, the name makes sense for a reason.
I mean, I have Silverado on my name, but I'm not a Chevy.
I was gonna say, dude.
My ass may be built like a Chevy, but I ain't one.
I was gonna say, if you got that dump space, you know what I'm saying?
A dump.
Yeah, there you go.
But I wanted to, like, talking about like your name, Kiske, I wanted to like learn like what is like the story behind like your model and like you as a person. Like, what made you like, what was like the creative like inspiration to like who you are right now? Because I know you've gone through a fair number of model updates since I've known you, at least.
So the name DJ Kiske was originally I used to go by a different name, but this was in 2013, I want to say, and I had this name, and there was an attack that happened, in France, and the word that I was using kept coming up on the news and on websites and stuff. So I was just like, I don't want to use that anymore. It would, it was sort of a thing of bad luck, you know? And so what ended up happening was I was looking around and I was playing a lot of fighting games at the time, and one of my favorite characters is a character named Sin Kiske from the game Guilty Gear. And I liked how it was spelled because it's 2 Ks, and that's what my middle name has, a K in it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I just sort of stuck together the DJ and Kiske, and I realized, oh wait, it rhymes and it's easy to say, DJ Kiske. So that's where the name came from. And then my model, the thing is I'm always on like this never-ending quest of finding a model that I'm happy with. Yeah. And the thing is like, I'm like, oh, I want to try this and I want to try this, and oh, that looks cool. And then I realize like, oh, somebody else has something similar. Dang it. Like, and it's not, and it's no fault of them. Obviously they had a cool idea, and then it just happened to be that we have, similar tastes. But then, but it's becoming like it's like a never-ending quest to find the one, that one design that I'm gonna just stick with forever. As of right now, I think this one's pretty close, but I feel like I'm gonna go in a different direction probably for the next version of this.
And I feel that on such a personal level. I think like VTubers especially, we always have to go with that battle, that issue where it's like, is my model unique? Is my model, quote unquote, 1 in a million? And it gets to the point where like the only way like we can truly ever be that 1 in a million person is if we like disproportion ourselves in a weird way. Like we add like monster parts, wild colors, like we over complex our models to the point where no one's gonna look like you because nobody's gonna want to have that on their model. And with you specifically being more of a human in through in terms of clothing, like it's one of those where like, yes, you're unique, but then like it's really hard to find that like one detail that makes you super unique. And speaking of like the ghost, like, is he a ghost technically?
So the lore that I came up with originally was, yes, he was a ghost. And but then when I rebranded around 2022, 2023, I decided to change it. I changed him from his old original rounded kind of look that he used to have. If any OGs in the chat will remember, he used to be a little black ghost, and he was like a more of a spherical shape. But then I found out that there was a company that called Ghost Games, which is EA, one of EA's studios, had a similar looking logo. And so I didn't want to get in any trouble, I don't want to have a trademark, I don't want to have a cease and desist sent to me. So I ended up contacting Kanafuyuko, who helped me make this little nerd, and he's actually an AI. The lore is that he he got implanted into my brain when I was 11 and only woke up because I started messing with radio technology. And so now he's trying to learn more about the world we live in. But he doesn't understand things like money. So there's a running joke that he purchased $5,000 worth of Popeye's chicken sandwiches because he heard that they were, quote, desirable. So so the lore is just simply that he's a little AI and he floats by my head and he's just kind of there observing, seeing what I'm doing.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, $5,000 Popeyes, I would fight for that. I would go to war for that.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken sandwiches. Hell yeah, man. And but yeah, like I think, and again, like it comes back down to the problem where like it's so hard to like find out like how to make our usernames and our brand names match to what we're trying to look. And you know, I think honestly, if I think about it, you're actually probably one of the first VTubers I ever actually personally interacted with, because like back before I started to get more outside my shell, I never really interacted with other content creators. And of course, when I first met you, I don't think YouTube was as like wildly over popular. Like there were still like idol groups and all that, but it wasn't like as a big of a wave as it is now.
And that's because like in 2020 is when VTubing really started to take off. There were VTubers before then. You know, Kizuna I think there's a guy, I forget what his name is, he's like a gorilla in Japan, who he was like one of the first guys to do it. And obviously as the years went on, you know, with like Hololive English and Gaurgura, and who's now Saba, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I feel like once after a few years, that's when everything started blowing up, and that's why you see so many VTubers now. Yeah. But yeah, I think I want to say, at least at the time when we met, which I think was like what, 2021, give or take. Yeah, give or take. Yeah, at that time it wasn't quite as big because most of like the bigger names were still, you know, kind of region locked to Japan, and they hadn't made that jump over to the US quite yet. Yeah. What, you getting the head pats? Look at that.
I do get head pats. Yeah. At one of these days, I'll get like a big stick and I'll just put it on top of my guest, be like, boop, there.
All right.
One day. But yeah.
And then I remember you talked to me at one point, like before you had actually went and gotten a model, and I remember you were like, how do I do thing? And I was just like, okay, I got you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because to me, like I was still dedicated. I had been a face cam streamer for years, and obviously VTubing was still in development, and I thought it was like super niche where you had to have like fancy computer, fancy equipment, and my computer at the time was not as solid as it could have been, but I also had really bad ISP. But one thing that I remember, like, because like I asked you like, how the hell does VTubing work? And VTubing, it turns out to be a lot easier nowadays, in my opinion, because it's a lot more easily accessible. More people have knowledge about it, and like I find that more and more people genuinely have had more access to technology that allows them to actually, you know, get involved. Granted, when I asked you, I started diving into my biggest mistake, Twitter bots, because I didn't know Twitter art bots were a thing. So when I was like, I'm looking for a VTuber model, and I have a budget of this much, please, blah 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 blah, right? And what's really funny is I have never had my Twitter be like, wow, I have 30 private messages, wow, my tweet blew up. No.
Oh yeah, no.
It's not blowing up. It's just the fact that there are so many people who are like, hey, I can't do what you're asking for, but I want money.
Yeah, and that's also kind of the reason why I didn't go into like a 2D VTuber model. Just a quick little thing for the people who don't know. So Nicco is what's considered a 2D VTuber, and I'm what's considered a 3D VTuber. And so basically the main difference is just that one is using a live 2D software, similar stuff like that, whereas 3D VTubers, we're using a physical 3D model that we have rigged up to do this. speaking of, you could just had an announcement for about 3D models.
Gotta love it. But yeah, so as those who do not know, at the time of this recording, I am officially in the process of doing a Kickstarter fundraiser to invest into 3D content and a 3D model. So we'll be doing subathons and that at a later date. But thank you, Moobot, for the very loud announcement. It's like, did you know? It's like, no, I didn't. I swear. But yeah, like, so because originally, like, I remember, like, when I first started looking into VTubing, I thought 3D was more expensive, but oddly enough, 2D is more expensive than 3D. But like, so those who do understand, like, from the breaking down perspective of how 2D is where you turn a flat Photoshop document, for example, and you separate every object, every layer, and every detail of a model into separate things. So like, looking at my model, you know, I'm red because our chat redeemed a color change effect, but like, every strand of my hair, my eyebrows, my earrings, and all that, everything is a separate layer, and it's a lot of effort and a lot of time consuming situations that take time in order to have that happen. And what's really intense and really crazy is that, you know, we don't always understand the amount of complexity that comes into these things, and it's it's very costly. And nowadays, for example, live 2D models on average can range from a low end of 700 to a few thousand, depending on how complex you want to be. And that's only the first half of it, because with getting the model artwork done and layered, then you have to get the rigging, and rigging is a whole other separate thing. And the medium itself has been very cost expensive, and it can be very intense and intimidating for those who are trying to look into ways to do it. And, you know, there are a lot of free programs out there like Vroid. If you know how to draw, you can draw your own model, given you know how to rig and take the time to make everything make sense. It's a hard thing.
And I was going to say, by the way, PNG tubers are valid. There's a lot of PNG tuber is just somebody who has just a little avatar, just a drawing of one thing, and then one with their mouth open when they talk. I've seen so many, like, and this is where I kind of get into the reason why, like, one of the parts I don't like about VTubing is that there's a lot of gatekeeping with VTubers, and some of the bigger names have said things like, oh, if you're, you know, unless you spend at least $80, you know, or $1,000 on your model, you're not really a VTuber, which doesn't make much sense to me. I think it's ignorant about, you know, it's ignorant for the people who don't have that kind of money. You know, when I was starting out, I didn't have that kind of cash to. Yeah, didn't Cinder get into? Yes, I was actually about to get to that. I was about to get to that, and it was, you know, and it's now to the point where people are like, oh well, I'm gonna try to gatekeep people from using a specific artist, you know, because I only want them to do my artwork only, and no one else. Like and there's a whole lot of discourse in the VTuber like space, and it's something that like. And that's one of the kind of reasons why, and it's not just with models, it's also with collaborations, with people stabbing each other in the back. Like there's a lot with VTubing, and it's starting to turn into high school is what I've learned.
Well, I mean, that's how a lot of them are aged. You know, a lot of models nowadays are aged around high schoolers and, you know, high school idol culture. And you know, like, and the biggest thing with, like, you know, to anyone who's watching and is wanting to get into VTubing can be extremely welcoming as long as you understand the communities that you're trying to engage with. And you have to understand that, like, no matter what it is, whether you're male, female, presenting how you wish, it's a situation where every which way is going to have its weird people and its weird fans. Because there are a lot of bigger people out there that have every willingness and supportingness to say, hey, you're just starting with your models, it's beautiful, great. But then you get those people who are like, wow, how dare you try to be this way. Like, my favorite thing on Twitter all the time is, let's see, I think the sinful models is, oh, If you are an aquatic VTuber, you're copying Shy Lily. If you're a pink VTuber, you're copying Iron Mouse. If you're a dragon, you're copying Zentreya. I mean, I have an excuse for the Zentreya thing because Zentreya and I, for my big model, had the same model artist. But still, it's one of those things where it's really hard to, you know, genuinely be 100%. Like, there's only so many ways we can reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah.
And like, especially with VTubing, you know, like, oh, I want to be a human who is cyberpunkish and blue. It's like, okay, what else? That's all I got. It's like, okay, here. And then like 6 months later, it's like, it's not unique enough. There's 20 other people who are like me. Yeah, called research. Like,
yeah,
it's hard.
And I was gonna say, and the thing about that too, and that's again one of the other things I don't like about the VTuber space sometimes, is that there's this whole, like, again, it's this gatekeeping like nonsense of oh, you have a, you know, you have a character that's a aquatic creature. Oh, you must be copying Gura. You must be copying Bao. You must be copying, you know, Shy Lily.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, you know, there's only so much you can do with a VTuber avatar before it just gets ridiculous. Like,
oh
yeah, obviously I've seen, you know, and it's to the point where some people, in an effort to be unique, have made models of like a rock or a truck or a bird, like not even like a bird person, just literally like a cockatiel. Like,
yeah.
and you know, it gets to the point where it's like you get into the realm of absurdity, and yeah, obviously those people want to do that. They want to make something silly.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel like there has to be a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? There has to be some kind of like a compromise of like, yeah, not everyone is going to be, you know, not everyone, you know, is going to be 100% unique. There's going to be somebody who just happens to be a cat boy, or somebody who's a dog, or somebody who's you know, a tiger or something like that. Like, it's just, you know, or in my case, just a guy. Like,
oh yeah. And you know, like for me, it's like, I guarantee that I am not going to be the only silver-haired individual. Like, I'm a silver-haired VTuber, great. And granted, like, you know, like my color palette's not 100% unique, but like, you know, I'm not wearing like the same types of clothes that everybody has. And again, like, there's only so many, like, eventually someone somewhere is going to have a bodysuit just like mine, and it's going to be like, well, here we go. And then, you know what? That's how it goes. But again, like, I think a lot of times the people who try to fight for that inclusivity of their model design are the people who tend to burn out faster, because, you know, it's like, it's that negative attention that never, you know, brings anything positive in the end. You know, like, they spend so much of their energy fighting back. It's like, wow, they blatantly copied me, look at the shape of their ears. And
yeah, and
horrible.
And I feel like the kind of, and that's one of the other things too, is with the exposure of VTubers and a lot of people having these really cool models, and I could name tons of people who have really, really cool models. With that, I feel like also a lot of people, when they saw VTubing becoming as big as it was, a lot of people, you know, decided to jump into it, not realizing that if there's more to VTubing than just having a model and having a stream.
Yeah,
you still are a content creator. You still are, you know, you still have to put in the work, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
And I come to find, you know, there was a big like amount of attrition. A lot of people ended up, you know, leaving the scene that, you know, were some of the people that started out when I was around. Like, some of the people that were some of my like inspirations have left the scene. Like, they've just stopped. And it's because they came into this with this thought of, oh, I'm going to be a VTuber and I'll be successful and this is going to be great, and not realizing that you still have to put in the work. You still have to, you know, it's not a free ride to success. You still have to put in a lot of work. And I kind of wanted to segue it into the whole networking and, you know, and communicating with other people in the creator space. Like, that's one of the reasons why, you know, it used to be when you first started out in VTubing in mid 2020, like during the pandemic, it was, you know, oh, I'm a VTuber, you're a VTuber too. Hey, let's do a collab. This would be cool. It's between two VTubers. This is awesome. Yeah. Now there's so many people that, you know, it's not really, it's not quite as easy anymore to just make, you know, oh, I'm a VTuber, you're a VTuber too. Cool. You know, and I'm not saying that, you know, it's a bad thing that that's the case. It's more just now, I feel like now it's a little bit more, you kind of pick and choose, and you get to really feel out how people are.
Yeah. So in regards to like the concept about collaboration, one of the first questions I have in regards to today's little topic is, so like, in your way, have you so for you as your streamer, okay, have you found that authentic relationships bring more opportunity than metrics ever could?
Absolutely. Like, it's kind of like when companies will you know, a company can advertise, you know, all over billboards, on TV, radio, and all this stuff, and you go to these seminars about advertising, and the number one thing they always say is word of mouth is your best advertisement.
Yes.
Like, just literally people talking about it, like one of your loved ones recommending something to you has a much higher chance of you buying that than you seeing an ad on television about it. Exactly. And so I feel like that kind of works in the creator space as well, because, you know, a good example with, you know, the site that shall not be named, you know, I got to, with that, I ended up talking to people and told them, oh yeah, I work with this company, you know, with this website. And they realized, like, oh, okay, cool. Well, here, I work with this. Here, do you want to do something? You want to work on something with us, or do you want to, you know, contribute to this project that we're working on? Yeah. So it's a little bit of, like, I feel like that networking is what helps you grow as both a content creator and also as you know, in your career of being a content creator, is you have to put in the effort to make those connections, because you can only rely so much on your metrics and on the algorithms that you rely, you know, that we have on all these platforms that we're on.
Yeah.
You know, you can only rely on those so much that in the end you still have to put in the work.
Oh yeah. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because, in my opinion, the concept of streaming has drastically changed. Not necessarily in a minor way where it's like, oh, you have to adjust one or two things about your content. No, this is an overhaul change. Because if we think about it, basically back then, you know, prior to the pandemic, streaming was a way that you had the ability to, if you simply went live, that was more or less all you needed to do, because the market was not nearly as available. But pandemic struck, you had a situation where everybody and their mother, quite literally actually, was able to stream. And now it became a commodity. It no longer became a commodity, and it became a commonplace practice that anyone was able to stream. Anyone is able to go live and make content, which now has then vice versa just quite literally said, hey, everyone's live. So now the reason you gotta make those genuine connections word of mouth is to show that your content and your streaming actually is going farther than the average individual. Because, you know, if you're a content creator whose only goal is just to go live and go off, like you go live, stream for an hour, you go offline, you're not going to be as successful, or not, let me rephrase that. You're not looking as a upward ability to grow compared to somebody who collabs, who streams, who makes secondary content besides going live on Twitch, for example. It's a situation where we currently are in a situation where metrics and relationships don't really go hand in hand anymore, because, you know, it's that personality, it's that ability to connect with people. And today's silver lining that we're going to be talking about for those who are listening in tonight is the importance of people and how people are, for lack of better words, the best asset as a creator. Because I feel like at this moment in time, we are in a moment in an era where currently streaming, we're not really valuing people anymore, because depending on like what stage you are as a content creator, it changes drastically. Because for some people, you know, you may view value in people based on the masses versus the quality of the few. Case in point, for example, a common question that I ask here in this channel is, Kiske, as a content creator, and if this was a positive situation for you, would you rather have 100 new viewers every month or 10 new viewers every month?
You know, the metric side of me says, oh, if I get those 100 people watching, that's going to show up really well on the thing, and I'm going to get, you know, promoted more. And, you know, naturally everyone has that ideal of, oh, obviously I'd love to get 100 plus viewers, new viewers every month. The reality of it is you kind of end up having to look at it of, you know, you kind of end up looking at it like, okay, well, yeah, I only got 10 new viewers this month. But I always try to like, because you know, with the amount of people that have kind of joined around me or sort of become part of, you know, my friends and things like that, who also started, you know, streaming and things, there's a lot of discouragement, you know, where they'll be like, oh, I only had 3 viewers today. I only had 4 viewers today. I always tell them, think about it like this, right? If you average maybe 5-6 viewers a stream, if you went to any comedy club, right, and said, hey, I have 5, 6, 7 people, 10 people showing up guaranteed, can I, you know, on a stream on a Saturday, for example, like, you know, if you told that to any like person who runs that comedy club, they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, you know, that's 10 guaranteed seats, that's 10 guaranteed sales. Oh yeah. So you kind of have to scale it in that sense of like, you know, yeah, I'm not, you know, Duke Dennis or, you know, Zentreya or Bao, you know, pulling in thousands of viewers, you know, but that's also like saying, oh, well, I'm not, you know, I make music, but I'm not Skrillex. Yeah. You know, like, obviously they're gonna pull in more stuff, they're more popular. But the fact of the matter is, if I were to go, if, you know, and actually Brandon put it perfectly, it's a numbers game, but it's important to remember those numbers are people. Imagine them being in a room with you physically, you know, and so, you know, if I get 15 viewers, again, if I were to go to a comedy club or, you know, kind of a thing and have people sit there for 4 hours, you know, watching me, and it being those 15 people, any person who runs that bar or that comedy club would absolutely want to have you back, because, you know. And so I always try to tell people to frame it that way of, don't focus so much on the numbers. Remember, if you have people who are coming back to watch you, that means you're doing something right. Yes. You know.
And I think it's really important to like the numbers game is very important, and it's a very mentally draining thing. Now, I change my answer every week when it comes to like 100 viewers is 10, because I always say, I like saying 10 because for me, it's one of those situations where I get to make 10 deeper connections with those viewers, which allows me to hopefully be a more of a connection, you know, because like, I personally like learning about my viewers. I like learning about what they're doing, any fun life events. Like a lot of the viewers that used to come by during my art streams, you know, a lot of them were actively in art school. So I always love like, hey, how'd that exam go? How'd that class go? Did you make that logo you were thinking about? You know, and obviously with 100 viewers, you know, you're gonna get there, but then like they're just numbers on a screen, or in some cases they're just flashes of color. You know, there's not that connection, and that's always something that I feel like is always very terrifying to think about. Like when a content creator gets to the point in their creation where they're unable to maintain that connection with their audience because there's just so many people trying to pull them around to get their attention. And like that's like one of the things where like I think if you do it at a more 10 viewers per month, you kind of pace it in a better way that allows you to understand, hey, I'm doing pretty okay. Because like you can train yourself, you know, it's like when people like first start streaming, you can train yourself to really deal with and, you know, engage with people, you know, like because when we all first started streaming, a lot of us didn't know how to game, then look at chat, respond to chat, and then go back to gaming. Because then eventually you go from gaming, you have chat in your peripheral vision, but you're still maintaining a conversation with chat while you're over here playing some crazy ass game. Like it's a skill, and every skill requires time, you know?
Yeah. And I was gonna say that, like, and to me that's the one thing that will set me apart from somebody like Bao or Zentreya or Duke Dennis or whoever, you know, whatever big name streamer, is that connection that we can have with our viewers. Because, you know, we can sit there and read out everybody's stuff, you know, oh, Brandon's talking about, you know, lurkers and how they're important. Absolutely, I agree that, you know, or, you know, somebody else mentioned about, you know, drama and things, and I can read that in the chat and be like, oh yeah, this is, you know, and, you know, talk with the people about it. Whereas there comes a point in a streamer's career where they get so popular that chat's just flying by, you know, and you can't go about reading it all because like you said, there's so many people. So again, it comes to that same like framing of mind that I was talking about earlier, where, you know, you go from that intimate, you know, comedy club kind of just, you know, you and maybe 30 people, right, versus you performing to a football stadium full of people. You know, you're not going to be able to get that same level of, you know, of connection with you and the crowd because there's just so many people, you know, and like you said, they're all vying for your attention. So like, yeah, obviously, like I said, the part of me wants to say that, oh, let's get, you know, the 100 people, because then that means I can grow and that means I can, you know, get to that point. But the truth of the matter is like, I would much rather go with the 10, because then that means that those people are gonna connect with me more. They're gonna, you know, they'll want to come back, you know. They'll want to, they'll see the true person that I am, and will want to come back and will want to keep supporting, you know, versus, you know, you might have that stream where somebody will raid and they'll have 500 people watching, but I can guarantee most of those people aren't going to stick around. No. You know?
Because they have no reason to. To then, like, you know, it's one of those things where, okay, guys, we're going to lurk and check out this random guy. 90% of your people are going to leave instantly because it's not their streamer, you know?
Exactly.
Because like, I think the biggest thing with, like, the reason why I always say that people are the most important part in the content creation space is that, you know, we as creators, we appeal to people. We make that, we make a personality that allows us to say, hey, Kiske over here is talking about some shenanigans or about talking about cars again. You know, I'm going to hang out and talk cars with Kiske. Or Nicco Silva Rao is talking about Sonic the Hedgehog memes again and Dr. Eggman speeches. I'm going to go check out his thing. Like, there's something about just the way that we can make connections to people. It's really fun. And what I wanted to ask you, Kiske, is like, so like, how does your personality define, like, how do you personally define like what your community is? Or do you think your community has like a definitive personality to it?
I feel like it's kind of a mix of both, at least in my case, just because, like, you know, there's kind of a, I don't want to say like I've trained them or anything like that. It's just something that just started happening. It's like when, you know, I'm playing a game and it's, you know, it's one of those ones where I'm really focused, that people will decide, you know what, I'm going to just make this guy's day just a little worse. I'm going to go ahead and make it so that he has to play it, you know, he has to use the right side of the controller with his left hand and his, you know, flip flop it, or take his glasses off so now he can't see. Like, like, you know, it's kind of a, how do I put it? It's kind of a, like, my chat sort of ended up with its own personality, you know?
Yeah.
And bully the nerd. Exactly.
Bully
you
the
know,
nerd.
people. That's kind of the vibe that everyone gets. Like, you know, especially Brandon. What he'll start doing is he'll be like, you know, I'm in the middle of a session, right, and he'll be like, drink water. Like, damn it. Okay, fine. Here, let me just go ahead and get the fuck, you know, and so it's that same sort of like, you know, interaction with your fans and interaction with the people that you know, have with you, that you can make certain bits happen, you know, things that are just like that will make your stream yours, you know. And you know, for my stream, is, you know, every time somebody tells me, hey, drink some water, I have this huge canteen that I have sitting next to my desk, and I always fill it with water. And then I always will talk into it, and I just start drinking water, like, you know, so that, like, just continue talking whilst I'm doing that, you know. When you have a limit, and then when I have a limit on the water redeem, because some people will just go crazy and be like, every 5 minutes, drink water, like, okay, I get it, you know. And then people will also throw things at me, and I always play it off like, you know, like they're actually hitting me. Like, I have one that's like a cardboard box will fall on my head and then I can't see, or like have it so that, like, you know, they'll throw a pie at me and it'll get stuck on my face, like, oh, blueberry, like, like, you know. And so I feel like, and and sort of going back onto the, you know, being a bit more intimate with your fans, is you kind of get that, you get to have those opportunities to make little things, like little quirks about your stream that make it unique.
Yeah.
Because nowhere else is somebody gonna, you know, whenever you tell them, hey, go drink water, are they gonna do, you know, just like have the, you know, like no one else is gonna be doing that.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, when you sort of realize like that the people who are watching you are sort of helping you in that sense, is when you kind of really grow as like as a creator, you know.
Now, in regards to like your experience as a creator, has your community assisted or at least inspired you in regards to your music making?
I would say a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. And I'm sorry if I'm not giving like definitive answers or anything like that. It's just I'm in a, it's like, mostly because like the way that I make music, is a very strange, like I have this weird quirk about how I make music. A song will either take me 20 minutes or 3 months. There's never an in between. So, you know, there'll be times where I will sit down and I find something that I want to work on, and all of a sudden, like within a couple hours, I'm done. Like the song is perfect. It's out there it's literally ready to go onto Spotify, onto wherever, right? And then there's those songs that I've had in my hard drive for like the past 2 years that like I want to finish, but I just can't. There's something about it that doesn't let me finish it, you know?
Honestly, genuine mood. Back before like I had like my current art rut, I used to have a thing where I would have like a file upon file of just in progress designs that I had no energy to try to finish. Because like to me, my weird quirk whenever I make stuff is that if it's not done within 3 days, it's not worth my time anymore. Because like at my job specifically, I have a thing where I have to make large volume of designs, and I don't have time to spend on multi-week long design sessions. But like to me, it's like I give myself 3 design sessions. If I can't wrap it up, then I have to go on to the next thing. And unfortunately, that's kind of grown into my independent art life, because now I'm trying to currently learn or retrain myself how to go through artwork and say, okay, I can spend more than 3 days on a design, will work. And for me, you know, my community has given me inspiration in ways of like my artistic ability, because, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, what if you know, give the cat a gun? It's like, oh, genius. Or what if you do this hex code for its butt cheeks? And it's like, butt cheek color, I love it. And, you know, just random things like that. Like sometimes, like that's why I love doing my art streams on live, because it's just you attract some of the most interesting random people who just show up out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, we have a list of people to work with now.
Yeah, the thing with my music though is like I'm weird in the sense that I'm I'm a perfectionist with how I make certain things. Like, it has to sound the way I like it, otherwise I feel like I'm not happy with it. And the reason why I'm not, like, I don't really take what viewers or what my chat will say is because a lot of times it's like and it's not because I'm trying to be mean or anything or trying to say that I'm somehow know more and I'm better. It's just that, you know, they become backseat producers, and they start trying to, you know, pull me into directions where the song, you know, where it doesn't, you know, things aren't going to sound as good if I do the things that they are asking. Like, oh yeah, you should layer this drum set, you know, this kick, and then this kick, and then this kick, and it's gonna sound really good. It's like, no, it's gonna sound like crap. Like
69% reverb.
Yeah, and it's you know, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to say, like, you know, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I still have to, you know, be able to put my foot down and say, like, no, like, I'm gonna do it this way. This is what my idea that I have in my mind is. I'm gonna do it this way. Yeah. So it's, I mean, I feel like because our art mediums are so different, you know, like, obviously, like, music is gonna be one thing of, you know, it has to sound a certain way, otherwise you're gonna give people headaches, you know. Versus, you know, with art, you know, because it's a static thing, you know, you don't necessarily have that issue per se. So it's a lot more open to collaboration with your viewers.
Yeah.
Versus with music, you don't really get that sort of thing. Like, the only people who really can sort of collaborate with you are people who also understand the medium quite as, you know, as well.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about, like, using your knowledge in music to do, like, an educational style stream where you're making designs, but then you offer advice to people who are curious about it?
I've done that before with my music. Like, anytime I do like my music streams, I usually will, in my one of my many tangents, I'll always kind of, you know, tell people, like, oh yeah, so this is what this does, right? And then when you put it on the song, it makes it like this. So I try to like, not just have it so people are just kind of staring at me listening to the same loop over and over and over and over and over again for 4 hours. I try to also show them a thing or two, like, you know, oh, I'm using the program Ableton, and this is why I use it, and this is what it does. And when you do this, this, and this, it makes it sound like this, or, like, you know, in a sense, it's sort of in a sense, like, I try to educate people while I'm doing my music, like, while I'm showing them, you know, my process of how I make music. But I try to also, like, but I mean, it's never like it's never 100%. Like, I don't just do a stream of just teaching people how to use Ableton, because I feel like there's YouTube videos for that, and those people are much better at explaining it than I am. But at the same time, like, you know, if somebody will, you know, come onto the stream and ask, like, hey, why are you using this thing? And it's like, oh, well, it's because it makes it sound like this. Like, you know, so if people come onto the stream and they ask questions, I'll happily answer them. It's just, I feel like, you know, me doing a 4-hour stream of explaining exactly, you know, how Ableton works, I feel like there's people who are trained to teach people how to do that, you know. Whereas if I explain it, it'll be like, press this button and it does this thing sometimes. I don't know, I'm just clicking buttons sometimes, you know, versus just, you know, an Ableton certified, you know, teacher will tell you exactly why this thing does the thing. Like, so in that sense, like, I do try to show people how, you know, what it does, or like what I'm doing, and kind of explaining my process while I do it. But I'm not purely trying to, you know, be the educator of Ableton or my music or whatever. That being said, though, if somebody asks me, hey, why do you do this thing that you're doing, I'll happily tell them.
Yeah. So, in regards to, like, your music, like, what would you describe the genre of it?
So, the genre that I particularly love making is called French touch or French house. And was born from like the 90s, like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, like house music movement that came out of Europe, where they would take like disco, funk music, soul, and chop bits and pieces out of it to make a whole new song. It's basically sampling music like that to make something brand new and something you can dance to.
Yeah.
I have this, I don't know why, but like it just tickles that part of the brain that I need it to. And so I just like, ever since I discovered it and I realized, oh, that's how they're doing this, is when I kind of got, and more involved in that. And then it kind of was a little bit of an offshoot later on that I started doing like lo-fi beats and synthwave, kind of like the stuff that I've made for your streams. So I kind of tried, like, I don't like locking myself down to just one genre per se, but the main one that you'll hear me make is French house. And yeah, Brandon says French house always reminds me of Kiske. Yeah, like it's to the point where like people know me for that so much that anytime they hear music that sounds similar to it, they think of me.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And then of course, for anybody who's listening here today, we will be having a link to Kiske's music profiles at the end of the video in the description. But of course, if you guys are watching us in the live recording here on Twitch, there is a pinned message that leads you to his Spotify, the SoundCloud, and the BandCamp. But no, like, and I think like what's really cool is like, you were one of the first like independent musicians I've ever like spoken to, because like I've always ran into like musicians who are like, oh, I made one track one time in college, but you've made like a multitude of various things. And I think it's really cool because again, like the ability to create our own like brand ourselves, like in your case, you can make your own theme songs whenever the hell you feel like. I think that there's a power behind that, especially if you can have a network of other creators who are talented in other things like that, because the ability is to be able to say, hey man, I'm working on making a new channel. If I commission you, can you make me this? Like it's something to be said, because like I don't think people really understand like how much of a superpower that is in the content creation space, especially with how hard it is to find authentic people. And when it comes to like, especially like when it comes to like the commissioning of authentic people, this kind of leads me to a thing that if you're not really down to talk about it, I will happily transition to. But I know AI music is starting to become really big. Have you personally seen, how has it affected you, or at least what are your opinions on it, if you're willing to talk about it?
So the thing with AI music is that, like, yes, it can do a lot of things. I guess right now it's not at that same point of like how it affects the art community, or even now how it's starting to like even bleed into like people making like AI generated videos that look really realistic. It's still kind of in its infancy in that sense. I will say that I feel like with music, because it is such a because it's such a like how do I put it, because of how you make music and how it's created, I feel like AI can't really replace things quite yet. Okay. And with how the copyright system is written as of now, even if you were to make some kind of a hit song using AI, you wouldn't be able to copyright it. And that's honestly, it's the copyrights of music that is what makes everyone their money. Like, I don't want to get into the like, I guess I'll touch on it a little bit, but when you make a song, you get two copyrights out of it. You get the what's called the composition and the recording. So the composition is literally, what notes do you have to play? What are the lyrics? What's the tempo? Something like basically the parts you would need to make the song, right? And then there's the recording. So the thing that you listen to on Spotify or SoundCloud or wherever, the actual song file, that is its own copyright in of itself. So music, a lot of the money is made from licensing the recording. So, you know, it's called sync licensing. And it's like, for example, if a movie wants to use a Led Zeppelin song, they have to go to the label and say, hey, we want to use this song. And then they pay the label, you know, the $250,000 it takes to get the rights to use that in a film or movie or what have you. And that's where most of the money is made.
Yeah. So
I feel like with the AI as it sits, because you can't copyright it, like under the United States law, I feel like it's not going to ever get to that point, at least not yet, you know, knock on wood.
Yeah.
That it'll get to that point where it starts replacing people.
Sure. And that's totally fair. And the reason why I think about that is, do you think that in general, do you think in the world of content creation, there's going to be a human first initiative?
I feel like yes. I mean, because it's already, like I said, with the copyrights, it's kind of already starting to go that way. In that, like, you know, at least with the current, how the laws are right now, the rule is that if you want to copyright something, right, if you want to get the thing that lets you have the opportunities to make music and make money off of it, it has to be a human hand that creates it. It can't be, you know, an AI that does it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the same thing with, you know, with comic books and with, you know, with art. Like, I think there was a case recently where somebody made a comic and used generative AI to generate all the art and things like that. And so they tried to copyright it, and the copyright office told them, no, you can't do that because you didn't create the art. You created the story and you can copyright that, but you can't copyright this comic with its art because you didn't make it.
Sure.
And yeah, and actually Brandon brings up a good point. Vocaloid, which is something that's been around for
a while,
decades now. Yeah. And it's a tool. Essentially, it's somebody saying a bunch of little snippets of sounds, and you have to use the program to, you know, you still have to put it all together and make it into a character singing something.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just, you don't just type in thing, have person say these lyrics and have it match song, done. It's not that easy. And that's why I agree with what Brandon is saying. Vocaloid's just a tool. AI is replacing the human being using a tool. So I feel like, especially now, with just how much vitriol there is towards also the Vocaloids have original voice banks by real people. So I feel like there's already sort of this movement of let's get away from AI, and it's not just about and it's not because, you know, we're trying to gatekeep, you know, all or whatever. It's because essentially what you're doing is you're taking the human side, the creative part of it, and you're replacing it with essentially slop from as much stuff as you can and sticking it all in one place.
Exactly. Because I personally, I think I've unironically, I think at least once in every episode, these past 7 episodes now, I think I've done at least a little bit of talking about AI, because that's something that I have been very passionate about and been very keeping an eye on extensively. Because for example, the latest variation of Google's AI video, it's like VOE3, and that's if anyone's been on TikTok and you've seen those like weird like Sasquatch like GoPro videos where he's talking like a college bro. He's like, I got over here, I found some mics, I stole all the fish, and like he's like running through the forest or whatever like that. Or like that's an example of like the latest thing. And the thing is about it is like AI takes an insane amount of computing power. Because like now, because like if we think about like maybe like 10 years ago, back then the only reason why you needed to have more than 2 or 3 graphics cards, high-end ones at the time, it was to do a Bitcoin mining. Now they need high-end graphics cards just to run and render AI footage, and it's getting very powerful. And there is positives and negatives to it, but right now we're kind of in the unregulated stage of a new thing. And I think I'm very happy to see AI first initiatives being taken very seriously, especially in my realms of the internet, because it's no secret that, you know, the shenanigans are crazy. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because, again, it comes back down to just the real human interaction, the ability to say, hey, I made this and people can find evidence of how I made this. And you know, I think that right now, I think in a way, this is my most curious question I've been really excited to talk about is, Kiske, do you believe that the next wave of success for creators will depend less on the gaming environment, but more on the personal environment, like more on the person?
I feel like it's kind of already that way, because like it's sort of like the people who do those reaction videos on YouTube and stuff like that. They have this, you know, you're there to watch the thing that's happening, right? Like let's say they're reacting to a video of, you know, somebody doing a freestyle rap, you know. And obviously you can appreciate it as a person saying, oh, this guy's super skilled, he's doing all these crazy rhymes and stuff. But there's this guy I saw who he's like a professional rapper, he's a producer and all this stuff, and he's able to explain like exactly what this guy's talking about. Like, oh, when he says this and this, he's meaning this. So then you start to appreciate more what this person's doing. Like, so, and it's like, so yes, obviously, you know, it's so like reaction videos, when we're doing video game streams, we are essentially doing the same thing, but people come to see you, the person. You know, how are you gonna react to X character in this video game, you know, doing something cool, versus how does somebody else react to it? And so that's I feel like that's kind of part of it. I did want to kind of go back a little bit on what you were saying with regulating AI, because there's this point in my head and I don't want to lose it because it's a really good point.
That's fair.
And it's that I feel like AI should have, there's only 3 things, at least in my mind, that AI should be used for. Like, because I feel like when it's unregulated, it gets into the realm of, like, you know, people losing jobs and having, you know, content that's just awful, and just, you know, it gets into that, it gets into the point where it's just more negatives than positives come from it.
For sure.
But I feel like because AI has done some great things. Like, one of the reasons why I would say it should be allowed is medical use. Like, I've heard that there was somebody made an AI to determine how many people buy croissants versus how many people buy donuts. And somehow, some way, it managed to be able to detect the difference between healthy cells and cancer cells. And we're able to use it to identify cancer cells within seconds, which to me is insane. Obviously, us as humans, we can only do so much, but technology like that will literally save lives. And I feel like in that sense, AI is perfect for that. Another thing that I feel like AI is really good for, and I feel like should be, you know, its main focus, is the tedious things, is getting rid of tedium. So, like, for example, you know, if I'm writing a script for a video or a movie or something, I'm gonna just type all my stuff out, right? And I would love to have it so it can just put it all in the correct format for me. You know, or say have an AI help with taxes and things like that. Things where it's just you tediously having to put things in, and, you know, basically doing the things that would help more than harm, help you do your job as a tool, for example.
And like, I 100% agree. Like, on the medical aspect, I actually attended a conference for veterinarian technology and like, vet medicine, and they have an AI system that almost like doubles the quality of x-ray images. And like with my experience with medical technology and all that, because my dog has medical needs, I'm always constantly like seeing his x-rays and all that. Like the clarity that I saw as a person who's not in medical field, I was astonished. And then like the tedium, that's the part where it gets very dangerous, because like, individual tediumness, that's a very easy thing to rectify. You're trying to do some spell checking for a long paper, boom, easy tedium. But then tedium as a business owner, that kind of devolves into a whole separate talk show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's one of those things where I do 100% agree, and it's a very, very interesting, very curious time that we're in. And I'm curious, because in the world of content creation right now, like AI and content creation is, for YouTube, for example, I need AI to help make me a thumbnail, which is most commonly the hardest thing for a lot of people to obtain decently, or to obtain something that like visually stands out, especially if you don't want to spend money on it. And then it's like AI scripts, and the biggest thing that's right now happening is the short form content wave. Like everything in the world of content creation right now is telling us that we have to make stuff with short form content, and AI has the ability to use things that allow us to make short form content really easily. Like for myself, I have an AI thing that goes through my VODs that will collect 40 plus clips during my podcast episodes, and then it converts it all over into short form content that I can use to make really easy shorts in a span of a day. It's all a matter of like the usage of the specific tools,
Yeah, and for me, like when I'm saying like getting rid of tedium, I mean it more in the sense of like to what's the word I'm looking for? To like is efficiency in the sense of like the single person. So it's me, I'm gonna I still have to write the script, I still have to come up with things myself, I still have to be creative in coming up with things.
Yeah,
the only thing that AI would be able to, that I would want the AI to help me with is, for example, I'm not very good at writing things in MLA format, right? Like when I was at college, that's the main thing that I always hated, was having to put things in MLA format, and that's what they want. So having an AI be like, oh yeah, okay, you have your source, you have this, okay, cool, here, I'll help you put it in the correct format, exactly how it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
And that I feel like is totally fine, because again, you're not relying on it to generate things for you. You're not relying on it to write your whole paper. You're still having to do the work. The only difference is it's helping you put things in the right order, the way that the way that this particular format wants you to put it in.
Exactly.
And again, medical field is, having that AI clarity, like you were saying with x-rays and things like that, is massive, because then people will be able to find things like hairline cracks in bones, or even we'll be able to detect things like if you have bile duct issues or things like that, like where small things are very hard to notice on something like an x-ray. And then I never got to mention the third thing, which is where it kind of gets into that slippery slope of there has to be a limit to it, and that is shit posting. So using AI to do silly things, right? Without, and here's the big caveat, without being able to make tons of money off of it.
Sure.
So, for example, when you were talking about AI music, yeah, AI could help with disabilities with the tedium. Absolutely. That's what I feel like it would be perfect for that. But like with the shit posting, like you mentioned earlier about like AI music, and I will admit there have been some pretty hilarious ones that I've heard where people have made like the AI make a country song about a guy who slammed his nuts in a doorway, and it was absolutely hilarious. And or like another one was like It was an AI that they had it sing a song like a bro country song, but have the lyrics make just no sense whatsoever. So it was just like, it was just like, I got beer in my boots and dirt on my truck, a dog in my lap and a gun up my butt, so like in that sense, like when you're just using it to fuck around and have it just get a laugh out of you, I feel like it should be okay. But again, comes to that very slippery slope of, I feel like you shouldn't be able to use it as your main form of content that you are like making a lot of money off of. So for example, if it's us two and we're messing around with an AI and we're reacting to what it's doing, right? Like, oh, it made a song of a polka band falling down a flight of stairs, like I feel like that is okay, but you can't then take that and just put that part up and make money off of that. I feel like there has to be a very strict limit with that kind of stuff. So I feel like in my eyes, those are the only 3 reasons why you should be using AI. But right now with how unregulated it is, and you mentioned earlier that it requires so much power to generate these things, that's the other reason why I feel like it needs to be regulated, because it's to the point where I believe it's like Twitter's AI or somebody's AI in Texas is like it draws more than like a big city. This one render farm, it draws more power than a city and requires like tens of thousands of gallons of water per day to keep it cooled. And that's water that you can't use anymore because it's now been, soiled by metal. Yeah. So like, I feel like it's super wasteful and really bad for the environment, which is one of the other reasons why I feel like it also needs to be regulated, because let's face it, we only have one Earth, and and I feel like I shouldn't have to sacrifice somebody else's drinking water because I want to make a video of a cat doing a backflip while playing a guitar,
Pretty epic though, I'm not gonna lie.
It would be epic, but I feel like I feel like it's not worth it in that sense.
Yes. And, I think like one thing that's really important to remember is that like, as content creators right now, we're kind of not necessarily strapped for attention, but like a lot of people are in this weird mindset where if they can find a way to make a big enough impression with one good enough video, then that's all they need to be a creator. And I think that's why like it's so important to remember that the connection of people, like if you can make a connection with like 10 people a month with the content that you make, like you show your effort, your grit, and your desire to actually make really, really good content, I feel like you're gonna find that more and more people are gonna find enjoyment with what you're creating. Because like I feel like the reason why people are so hyper reliant on AI is because they're trying to throw as wide of a net as possible, and AI allows them to make as much things as possible. And like if you can make that connection with people, you can show your small group of people something that you made, and then somebody will eventually say, hey, this streamer that I watched made this really cool thing, and then it word of mouths it, and then it gets bigger and bigger over time. And it's so genuinely important. And to the people, to anyone who's listening here today, if you are amongst the individuals who is afraid that AI is going to make your efforts obsolete, the biggest thing to remember is that yes, AI is very good at rapidly making random crap, but eventually AI is going to become, it's like VTubing. Right now, AI is so niche that there's not that many people who are doing it. Eventually, there's going to be a situation where everybody and their mother is going to be making AI videos, but then eventually there's going to be value in what you're making because it shows the human initiative, the human creativity. And I think it's always important to remember that human creativity, in my opinion, as of this video, is going to survive in the long run because, a lot of people have very stellar opinions about it. And no matter what it is, folks, like the reason why we're talking about all this stuff here today is the fact that there is value in human connection. There is value in how you create content and how people absorb the content that you're creating, because at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing and no matter how you do it, if you put effort into it and you know, do your research, eventually things are going to work out. And it's hard. It's very hard. So like for me, it's one of those things where platforms are going to come and go. But one of the biggest examples that I've ever had in regards to the value of human connection was a great many years ago. I was a part of a platform known as Mixer, otherwise known as Beam. It was Microsoft's answer to Twitch, and it had the means to get really up there, but there was a lot of other reasons that caused it to, you know, eventually falter and bottom out, and it became Facebook Gaming by default. And what ended up happening is, you know, I had a pretty reasonable sized community because I was really heavily into, you know, raiding, collaborating, and doing other events. And eventually, when the community shut down, I was able to bring it back my community to Twitch, and my community at the time was able to, you know, survive the great transition, and I was able to jump right back into content creating versus going into, you know, having nobody to work with. And you know, everyone has chatters. Everybody has people that you see them show up and you say, oh my god, it's Brandon the Chihuahua, my life is complete. You know, like
me a few years ago.
Honestly though, there you go. You're right though. You're right. The biggest Awa Awa fan ever, right in this room, and you know.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, you're good, bro. We love the Awa Awas, but like at the end of the day, like it really is. It's wild to just to see how one or two names in our chatters can change our mood. It can change how we view our progress, you know?
Yeah.
We love our communities. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's one of the reasons why I always am telling people, like, even if you only have like, you know, 7 people watching you, 5 people watching you, 3 people watching you, like the fact that they're, you know, that they're taking their time to appreciate what you're doing and have, you know, and seeing what you're, you know, what you're doing and talking to you and interacting, like you kind of, there's this like sort of, there comes this point where you're there comes this point of people feeling like, oh, they need to have the 50, the 500, the 1,000 people watching, but you kind of also, you come to realize, like, you start to value the people that show up all the time, that, you know, are there to help you sort of grow. And like with my chat, whenever I see Brandon come into my chat, I feel happy because, you know, oh, he's getting to see what I'm doing today. Or, you know, our good friend Jenner, when he pops up, it's, you know, usually will have something funny to say, or Hilion, or, you know, all the different people who are regulars in my chat. Like you end up kind of getting this little bit of, you know, I guess this little tiny bit of serotonin of people like, oh yeah, these are yeah, see, exactly, see right there, something funny to say, exactly. So there comes this sort of you get this little bit of happiness of seeing these people who, you know, are literally watching you grow and literally helping in in your journey to get to where you want to be, you know.
Yeah. So Kiske, in your opinion, do you believe creators sometimes undervalue the power of the dedicated few versus the reach of the many?
I think so, and it's one of those, like, the problem is that it's kind of an endless cycle that you kind of have to teach yourself to get away from. Yeah, because, you know, and that's one of the things why I always recommend people if you have a view counter on your stream or anything like that, turn it off. Just ignore it, forget it even exists, don't take a look at it at all. Because when you are sitting there and you only see the 3 viewers, there's this weird kind of message that your brain creates of like, oh, hey, not that many people are watching. You know, you're not doing, you know, not enough people are going to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So whereas I always tell people, it doesn't matter if there's 10 people watching you or 10,000 people watching you. If you bring that energy, you're gonna have, you know, you're gonna have a good time. Yeah. So I always recommend just turn off the number, show, and just be yourself, and trust me, you're gonna have a good time either way. Did you get the 50,000 people that Zentreya or Bao or whoever are getting? No. But did those people who are watching you have a good time? Most of the time they'll tell you yeah. So
and I think it's also important to remember too, like a lot of those individuals, like those creators, for example, for sure, I have no doubt, have those dedicated few members whom have been with them since the beginning. And you know, like it's very rare for someone to say, oh, I was with this guy back when he was less than 1,000 or less than 100, because like a lot of times, like we like to do this comparison culture with bigger creators when they're big, or when they're famous, when they're partnered with a platform. And it's one of those things where like you're not gonna find a lot about when they first were started. Like, you know, like if you're a big Zentreya fan, many of you were probably not around or watched Zentreya when all they had was a notepad with their original General Zentreya outfit. Before they even got the TTS thing. You know, and it's one of those things where it's the history part of it. And, you know, and this is something that I've been recently trying to like tell people in regards to like, you know, finding a degree of appreciation towards the people specifically, because if you think about it like this, I, as a streamer who has been streaming now for almost 7 to 8 years, I do not have a single person in my community actively who was there back when I was under 100 followers on Twitch. I don't have any of like the original people, just because time has changed. But like I know a couple people out there who have you know, been around, and it's like I have people like who've been streaming for like 2 or 3 years, and they're like, oh yeah, I've got my original crew, you know. And it's insane. It's crazy, because like to have those people who were with you when you first started, it's fun to have people who've witnessed the change firsthand, you know, where it's like, oh, I watched Nicco Silverado when he didn't have a face cam, then he got a face cam, then he became a VTuber, and then I knew Nicco Silverado before he was even married. It's like, boom, lore.
And that's the thing that I always, and that's why I also say that, like, you know, that's also why I'm like, I always am telling people just to appreciate, even like I said, even like if you only have 5 people watching, because, you know, one day you might get to that point where, you know, you blow up and you get tons and tons of, you know, people following and tons and tons of people watching. But the thing is, you're always going to remember those few people, you know, who were around when you were the small indie person who was just doing their thing, you know. And so there also comes like a point where you have your little group, and you basically make friends with those people, you know. And I feel like this is the area where it gets kind of muddy, because of how certain parts of streaming culture have like kind of gone negative or positive in a way. It becomes like a, you know, you get to have this sort of relationship with your original viewers, the people who eventually will become friends, right? The issue, though, and this is why I say it kind of gets into that murky water, is when there's this weird parasocial sort of relationship. so in a sense, it's like, yes, there is a, there's a natural, want of wanting to have those, wanting to have those original viewers and things like that. But at the same time, it can be a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
In that, you can have those weirdos who will stalk people, who will, try to, who, like, there was a story recently of a guy who donated all this money to Pokimane and then literally went out to her house and was trying to move in and like trying to basically like take her as his and things like it's there's a very fine line that I've learned with this kind of stuff, and it's something that also I have to tell people to prepare for, because you never know, dude. You might have those people who've been, have been on your stream since day one, and then they kind of get to this weird point where they're, trying to tell you exactly what you're supposed to be doing, or trying to tell you exactly, trying to control you, And so you... Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, keep going. You can finish your statement.
Oh, I was gonna say, and so it comes to the point where you kind of like... You also have to remember that, like, yes, there are people behind the screen. You also have to remember, though, that you have to value yourself too. It's not just about the numbers and the viewers and things. You also have to remember that if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not being yourself when you're doing this, is there really a point? You know, like, and so it's a very weird situation that with streaming, is you kind of have to keep things at arm's length, but still be able to have that sort of intimate connection. And I feel like it's in a weird spot where you kind of have to sort of play the balancing game. Otherwise, you're just not gonna, otherwise weird things will happen, or you get into you put yourself in these weird positions. Like, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, I guess yes, there's this love of having that sort of intimate, sort of like, I keep saying the word intimate, but I feel like that's the only way I can describe it. That sort of intimate connection between you and your, original OG viewers and friends, right? That either end up becoming friends, or, who just stick around because they like your vibes or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's the people who have, ulterior motives, who will feel like that because they've stuck around for long enough that they feel that they're owed something, Yeah.
And, it's like, I've had my own fair share of problems where, like, I've had viewers get too personal with me, where they tell me all these things and they turn me into a therapist, because like they trust me with the issues. And like, that's one of the biggest things as creators. We have to be able to set a boundary. Boundaries are important. Saying no is important, because people do trust creators with a lot. They trust us with their personal time. They trust us with their information, money in some cases. And I want everyone who's listening here today to please remember, if you are a streamer, remember that your people have emotions, and sometimes we as streamers and content creators are their emotional release. We are the reason they will come to us in order to, discuss like personal problems. They may be having a bad day. They'll come to our streams and they'll find a way to chill out. As viewers, if you are enjoying a streamer really well, understand that a streamer, if they're respectful at least, will be happy to have you in their stream, in their chat, and have you be part of the community. But remember, you are just a person they have met on the internet, and you should protect yourself at all points. And you should always be remembering that, the internet's a place that's not built for long-term relationships, especially if you're misunderstanding the situation. And ladies and gentlemen, as we get to some of our final points here today for tonight's episode, I want to reiterate some of the things we discussed about. The importance of our chat and our people is something to be very... this is one of those things where the importance of of people in content creation is something that should always be cherished, whether that is the numerical value of the people that you've been able to amass and bring together, or it's the quality of the people that you've met and you've been able to call them your bros, or you invite them to your wedding. I've actually done that. I have one of my viewers who started off as just a guy. I've never met him before. You know, he was a viewer. He eventually joined my D&D campaign. After a few years, I invited him to my wedding. You know, it's like those like really, really rare situations where things blossom over time. And I think every streamer should strive to obtain people that you can trust and obtain people that can help you throughout your content creation journey, whether that's physical, whether that's financially, idea wise, or just, you know, that emotional anchor, because streamers need that emotional anchor as well. And we need to try our best to look past the algorithm, to look past the numbers game that we are plagued with as content creators, and try everything in our power to remember that people are the most important tool, well, not even tool, people are the most important asset that we can look upon and rely upon as creators. So Kiske, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of today's episode. I had a great conversation with you, and of course everybody who's watching here today in tonight's stream, I want you guys all to remember that if you guys ever do want to check out my man Kiske, there will be a description in the bottom of the video if you guys are watching on YouTube, and of course if you guys are watching on the live recording, there is his link in the chat now, and there will of course be additional links in the YouTube video for his personal SoundCloud and other musical locations. Kiske, before we officially end off, do you have any last minute statements, questions for me, or anything in general?
So I mean, I was gonna say, obviously, like for those who want to check me out, I stream on the weekends, so Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is usually when I start. And I guess the main thing, I guess my final thing I kind of want to say to everybody is, just remember that if you decide to become a VTuber or a content creator or what have you, just remember that what's really going to set you apart is what is basically being yourself. Don't try to be someone else, otherwise you'll end up losing what makes you unique. The thing also is, just remember that it's a cutthroat world out here, especially with content creation. There's a lot of people who will happily stab you in the back if it means they get an extra few viewers. So finding those people that you really trust, people that like you were mentioning, people that you really trust, finding that group of friends that you can rely on. I feel like that should be your main priority, is find those people that you rely on, and understand that, that once you do find those people, cherish them, because like I said, in this it's a cutthroat sort of thing out here, and people, like I said, will more than happily throw you under the bus if it means that they can, get that sponsorship deal or what have you. So I say, stay safe out there, y'all. There are good people. Don't go about thinking that I'm just saying that everything is dangerous and you need to be afraid of everyone. Just know that there are good people out there, and you'll find them eventually. Just be yourself, be true to yourself, and as I always say, peace, love, gangsta shit.
Gangsta shit. Hell yeah.
Yep. Which, funny enough, was the reason we met, if I remember correctly.
More than likely, honestly.
So, because I guess I want to end it off on a little bit of a lighter note. The day that Nicco first came into my stream, I said a joke. I closed off the stream by saying, I've been DJ Kiske, peace, love, gangsta shit, which is a reference to a video that I saw years and years ago. And I remember Nicco was dying in the chat of laughter about me saying that. And then anytime we would talk, he would always be like, "Peace, love, gangsta shit," right? I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And it got so attached, like he got so attached that he kept referencing it to me. That I just was like, "Fuck it, I guess I'm gonna just start saying it now." Just like as my outro is "Peace, love, gangsta shit." So to this day, because of Nicco, that's the reason why I continue to say it to this day.
Hell yeah. Lovely. Well, nevertheless, so guys, as always, if you guys did end up enjoying today's YouTube video, consider liking, subscribing, tell your friends about us. If you would like to come and join us in enjoying the live podcast reviews, we do have the podcast available on Twitch, twitch.tv/Nicco Silverado. You guys can also come check out my man Kiske, twitch.tv/DJ Kiske. But as always, guys, have a good one. Have a good night. Adios. Sayonara. And goodbye.
Peace, love, gangsta shit, y'all.
Gangsta.
Have a good one.